Today, we're talking about the great resignation, people leaving their jobs in droves to seek out something better or different. How real is this trend? What do the numbers show? We are going to the experts at USAFacts to ask those questions and get the answers. I'm excited to be joined now by Sasha Anderson. She is Data Partnerships Manager at USAFacts. They are a nonpartisan civic organization dedicated to making government data accessible to all of us and a News Not Noise content partner. Sasha, thanks for being here.
Jessica, thank you for having me. I'm really excited to dig into this topic.
I know this is one everybody is so interested in. So, obviously, this is a buzzy term now, the great resignation. It's in the zeitgeist, but I'm wondering, what does the data show? Is this really a trend? And if so, is it a purely post-pandemic phenomenon or in the pandemic phenomenon?
Maybe a little bit of both. We're at a historic high right now. So the Bureau of Labor Statistics, they do the JOLTS survey. So that stands for job openings and labor turnover. They've conducted this survey since 2000. Right now, job quits are the highest they have ever been. So as of July of this year, most recent month for which we have data, we're sitting at 2.7%. The highest it's ever been was back in April. So we're almost at that point still. Just for comparison, because 2.7% might not seem like that much, but for comparison, the lowest point has been 1.2%. We saw that back in 2009, just after the Great Recession. So this is much higher now than we've ever seen before. Previous highs have been at 2.3%. That's where we were in 2019, heading into the pandemic. This has already been a trend leading up to the pandemic, but we're now much higher than we've ever been.
So interesting. Are we seeing it hit specific industries?
We are seeing it hit specific industries. I would say that generally the quit rate for all industries is high right now. A couple of ones that I would call out are leisure and hospitality, and then transportation, trade, and utilities. Those two sectors, they generally have higher quit rates because of the nature of the work, but right now they have the highest rates of any of the industries.
Do we know anything about who is most likely to walk away from their job? Do we have demographics of the people who are quitting?
That's a really interesting question. So the survey is asking employers about employees leaving businesses. So they're not able to ask about, why are they leaving or who are the people that are leaving? So unfortunately, from that BLS survey, we don't have that data. We can sort of get at it from some other government data sets. So looking at some census data, looking at those who are not currently working, but not retired and have worked in the last 12 months, we see some trends. So we know that the groups for age groups, those that are most likely to not be working are minors and those 18 to 29, and their reasons are most likely to be going back to school. So that makes sense, right? And then for people in their 30s, their rates are a little bit lower, and we see them citing health reasons is actually the biggest reason why right now. And then for older age groups, they have the lowest rates of not working, and they're most likely to cite family or just other. So a little bit of a black box there.
I'm curious to know, to put this in a little bit of context, where is the unemployment rate generally right now, and how does that compare to our recent past?
Right now, we're sitting at 5.2% unemployment, and that is a little bit elevated. So in February of 2020, just before the pandemic hit, we were at 3.5%. So it has gone down since the beginning of the pandemic, but the unemployment rate is still higher than it was going into this period of time.
This seems really counterintuitive. If we were at a period of, low unemployment, real saturation, you could see people walking away from their job. But this doesn't really add up. Have we seen anything like this before?
Yeah, it is highly unusual. So you're exactly right. Usually those two measures, unemployment and the quit rate, they have an inverse relationship. Right now, we're seeing them move in tandem, which we've never seen before. So we know that the pandemic has turned the world upside down.
So interesting. This is why this is a zeitgeist trendy topic. We haven't seen this before. Okay, so one industry that we all keep hearing has been very hard hit is hospitality restaurant workers. What does the quit rate look like for restaurant workers?
So, leisure and hospitality is one of the sectors I called out as having a high quit rate. Under that, in a subsector, it's food services and accommodation. They have overall the highest quit rate. It's sitting at 5.4%. So, again, the national quit rate is 2.7%. They're 5.4.
Wow. Do we have any idea why it's so much higher in that industry?
Yeah. So, gosh, it would be so great if we were able to do exit surveying or, really could dig into the reasons. I'm sure that would tell very interesting stories, be good feedback for companies. But what we can look at are some other factors that we can guess might be involved. So, I dug into some data on pay rates. So, national average for hourly pay right now is $30.56. For those employed in food services and accommodation, that drops to $17.76 per hour, including reported tips. So, yeah, that's one thing I might look at. Another thing I might pay attention to is just how severely this industry was hit by the pandemic. So, the layoff rate overall was 8.6%. But at the beginning of the pandemic in March of 2020, for this subsector, it's kind of unbelievable. It was 33.4%. It's just
Oh, wow.
astonishing. Yeah, they took a huge hit. Just for comparison, retail trade is another subsector that was hit pretty hard, but they had 8.9% compared to 8.6% national average. So just what happened in that particular subsector is unique.
Yeah, it really devastated that workforce. Wow. I hadn't realized that. It's also interesting to look at some of the data you've gathered around small business formation. What are you seeing there, and can we connect some dots?
Yeah, personally, I find this trend just super interesting. So love getting to talk about it. Let's talk about kind of what new business applications, what they look like normally. So when you go to start a new business, you have to file with the government your intent to form a business, and then we track that data. So in 2019, the monthly average, national average for new business filings was just under 300,000 per month. So that's where we were sitting. And then we've had highs in 2020 and 2021. The most recent measure, I believe, was in March of this year. And in that month, in 1 month, 608,000 new business applications were filed. So that's more than double the monthly average from 2019. So and it's been happening month over month. So it's just, at USAFacts, we don't like to comment too much on what's, call something like extreme or not a lot, because I think that's for the audience to decide about, how they want to interpret the data. But this is one of those moments where the line is just flat, and then you see this just astonishing spike. It truly is fascinating. So I think we're going to see the effects of that for a couple of years to come, but we definitely have to keep that in mind when we're thinking about quit rates and are people going to start a bunch of new businesses?
That is so interesting. And I know the data doesn't show this. We don't know, but maybe during the pandemic, people are like, this is my time to take my shot. Life is short. Who knows? It's such an interesting trend. You've been saying that the government data doesn't tell us about why people are leaving, what motivates them. But I did look at a recent Gallup poll, and it finds that across industries, people who are not engaged by their jobs have the highest quit rate. So that it's not about a pay issue they found as much as a workplace issue. Does the government data tell us anything about this, and generally about how employers are treating people in the workplace?
We have some measures that can get at that. The first thing I'd start with is we have a little bit of insight from a new survey that the Census Bureau started doing during the pandemic. It's called the Household Pulse Survey, to measure the experiences of Americans during this moment. And they do ask some questions of why people aren't working. It's not specifically for people that have quit their jobs, but for not working generally. Digging into those reasons is super interesting. So for 30% of people who are not working and who are not retired in this moment, they just state other as the reason. So that's it's a huge unknown there. Like, what are those reasons? It would be so great to know. Other reasons after that, the next highest is addressing sickness or disability that's not COVID related, caring for kids that aren't in school or daycare, and unfortunately addressing COVID related sickness. So that's one set of data. Some other indicators we might look at. I pulled some data points for you. I want to make sure I get this right. I'm about to throw a bunch of numbers at you. American workers, private industry workers, 77% of them do have access to paid sick days. But for paid family leave, that drops to 23% of workers have access. For healthcare benefits, 70% of private industry workers have access to a healthcare plan, and 47% choose to take advantage of it. So less than half of those workers, maybe because the plan doesn't work for them, they have it through a spouse, or it's too expensive still to afford the premiums.
And just on paid sick leave versus family leave, one is if I get sick, and the other is if a family member gets sick or if I get pregnant and want to care for my child and take days off. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. Did I interrupt you? Did you have more?
I just have one more that I was
Okay,
looking at. I wanted to pull retirement benefits, and looking at that, it's 68% have access and 51% choose to participate. Some of the measures that we might want to look at when it comes to job quality.
that's so interesting. I'm surprised by some of those numbers, including healthcare uptake. Okay, so finally, all of this is clearly impacted by the pandemic. What do the latest COVID numbers show, and what do they tell us about the near-term impacts on the economy?
We definitely know that the pandemic has moved the economies in ways we haven't seen before, starting with the quit rate. And that may continue. So we're currently sitting at, as of October 5th, 80,000 daily cases and about 1,900 deaths. So it is trending downward a little bit, but we haven't hit the holiday season. So we might continue to see these highly unusual economic trends as COVID-19 still has a huge impact on the economy.
So the future's still uncertain. Yeah. Sasha, as always, it is such a treat to get this information from you. You make it so digestible. Where can people go to look at these numbers and find out more?
Yes, we have more at our website, USAFacts.org, where we dig into a lot of these numbers. We have custom reports, analysis. You can see the data for yourself and decide what you think about some of these trends.
And it's presented in an easy to understand way, which is my favorite part. Thank you so much. It's great to see you. I'll talk to you again soon.
Thanks, Jessica.